Us talking to the robot.
Yo, motherfuckers, I'm right here.
After Saints Row the Third, it was hard to imagine how this series of increasingly zany open-world crime games could possibly get any zanier. Rather than attempting to tackle that challenge head-on, Saints Row 4 sidesteps it by being an almost completely different type of open-world game. Sure, the core of Saints Row is still there. There are still plenty of absurd weapons, costumes, and activities. But the way you interact with the world has changed. No longer are you an ordinary, earthbound mortal. Saints Row 4 turns you into a superhero, capable of running up the sides of buildings and flinging people with your mind. This isn't a refined game or a challenging one, but it is a sometimes hilarious playground of a game that gives you plenty of fun abilities to use and plenty of opportunities to use them. How does the game explain your new capacity for doing things like leaping tall buildings in a single bound and zapping enemies with freeze blasts? Well, it's simple. You saved the world from a terrorist threat and became president of the United States.
And more fun as a gang leader.
Then the Earth was invaded by aliens, and the evil alien overlord had you placed in a Matrix-style computer simulation of a city where, much like Neo, you can acquire all manner of abilities that break the rules of the simulation. Saints Row 4 mines its goofy premise for all it's worth. When What Is Love by Hathaway comes on as you're escaping from an alien spaceship,
radio signals bounce around space for
the juxtaposition of grim sci-fi visuals with 90s dance beats is so unexpected that it's delightful. And there's an infectious joy in the way your character, puckish rogue that he or she is, delights in it all. Whether you've opted for one of the male voices, one of the female voices, or the specially named Nolan North voice, which is provided by noted video game voice actor Nolan North. You probably figured that out. Given the fact that this is a game in which you can run around naked shooting people with an inflato ray, you might expect the humor throughout to be crass and juvenile. And for the most part, it is, but not always in the ways you expect. The game's humor is unabashedly stupid, but it's smart about being stupid, working in references to Shakespeare, clarifications about the distinction between alliteration and assonance, and knocks at those silly people who don't know the difference between a robot and a mech suit.
I was talking to the robot.
It's power armor.
Same thing.
Not really. A robot is an automaton, whereas power...
Don't know when this came.
The banter among Saints is consistently sharp and will definitely have you laughing out loud on numerous occasions.
A dead pirate with a black parrot?
It's a raven.
Why does the pirate have a raven?
Very early on in Saints Row 4, you acquire the abilities to leap incredibly high and to sprint at superhuman speeds. And by collecting ubiquitous glowing blue clusters, you can enhance these abilities and the others you gradually unlock. Once you can sprint, you'll probably hardly ever use a vehicle again, since you can run faster than any car, which makes all of the car customization options carried over from earlier games feel a bit superfluous.
You're gonna get me out of here, right?
But the lack of emphasis on vehicles is a reasonable trade-off for the joy of leaping 15 stories into the air and gliding all the way across town.
Oh, yeah!
While sprinting may replace driving as your primary way of getting around, the powerful attack abilities you acquire, like Freeze Blast and Telekinesis, won't replace your regular weapons, but instead just augment your arsenal. Unfortunately, though enemies may sometimes overwhelm you through sheer numbers, their AI is thoughtless, so the satisfaction of battle comes not from overcoming a challenge, but just from reveling in the power fantasy of obliterating them with energy swords and dubstep guns.
You to do his dirty work.
Does he work?
Because the game is so good about doling out new weapons and abilities at a steady pace, you often feel like you have some fun new toy with which to torment your puny alien oppressors. But because you have so many ways of effectively overcoming them, combat eventually starts to feel rote and inconsequential, and you may often find yourself just freeze blasting and shattering your enemies repeatedly to be done with a fight as quickly as possible. But even if combat sometimes falls into a rut, there are more than enough surprises in the game's story missions to keep you entertained. And as in previous games, you can increase the mayhem by inviting a friend along to do missions and other activities.
This is for little old me.
Saints Row 4 owes a lot to games like Crackdown and Prototype, but the absurd humor that infuses every aspect of this game gives it an identity all its own.
Any less advice I'll understand.
The virtual simulated city of Steelport doesn't have deep gameplay or offer the most satisfying challenge, but it is a great place to mess around.
Hey, what? Goodness me, what a dream. Something sure smells tasty.
Leave it to the Saints!